everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad that you were able to come out today and support Dietlinde and hear her story. My wife and Sabrina, are relatively new to this congregation, and one of the first people that I met when we came here was Dietlinde, and I immediately loved her. And every week that I would talk to her and Raymond, I would learn a little bit more about their interesting story. And so a few of us that also hadn't heard the full story said, we need to get together and let Dietlinde tell us his story. And so some of you here today may have already heard it, but you're back to hear it again. So thanks for that. Dietlinde is quite an accomplished woman. She's an author, a lecturer, and she has a BA from David Lipscomb University and an MA from Vanderbilt. And so you may have heard she was born in Silesia, Germany in 1939, and she's lived a very interesting life. She's lived under Nazism, communism, until eventually making it over here and living under our republic and democracy. So she's experienced quite a bit. So without further ado, welcome, and we look forward to hearing Dietlinde.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. First of all, I want to thank the elders for allowing me to do that, to come and speak. I appreciate Marv. I mean, he worked so hard, and he's the one that organized it all, and he had a lot of helpers. But I'm almost ashamed to speak. I really am humble, and I kept saying to Raymond, who am I? Who am I to tell so many people?
Can you stand on the microphone?
Okay, we're here.
That one's to the audience.
Oh. Well, I'm just I don't want to be joking about Polish people, but I say I'm just a Polak, so I didn't know how to do that. But really, when I told Raymond, I said, Raymond, there's so many people that have stories more important and went through much more than I did. And I said, and yet everybody is always so kind in America and loving and wants to hear my story. So with almost a little embarrassment and very humble, I will tell you, because I was asked to talk. I also would like to introduce my family. They surprised me. And I tell you, my daughter has a poker face. She never told me that my 3 grandchildren from Alabama are going to come, or 2 and 1 is here. And I was so surprised. So my daughter is here. She teaches at Faulkner University, all the medical subjects because she's an MD. My son-in-law is with her, and they all live in Prattville, close to Alabama, at Montgomery. My son is a dentist. My grandson is working with him as a dentist also, Grayson. He surprised me to come from Birmingham. With her is Isabel, my granddaughter who teaches here, the redhead, and my sweet Danielle, she is in University of Alabama. She's a rebel. They all graduated from Auburn, and she says, I'm not graduating from Auburn, I'm going to Alabama. So that's how she is. And we have to put up with it. But they surprised me. I thought my granddaughter was in Atlanta. The others never thought they would come. So I am so proud to have that. I'm proud that you all are giving me your time to be here. As I said, it's just very humbling for me to speak to you. And again, I want to thank the elders for allowing this meeting to come to place. Because Germans were defeated after World War II, we were forced to give up precious German territories to Poland and to Russia. And I will show you a little bit where I lived and where I come from. This is going to fall. This cannot be breathed on. This is the West Germany and East Germany as it was known. East Germany and West Germany were united in 1991. The wall in Berlin came down in 89. Most historians said the wall will never come down. But we all prayed, and God brought the wall down. And now the people are free in East Germany. But I was born close to the Czechoslovakian border. Right here is Silesia. That's where I was born. And I lived quite happily till 1944, 1945. My father was a high-ranking Nazi officer. And as I tell children when I'm in college or children in school, I will tell them, if you are on the right side and identify with the powers, you don't have to be afraid. I did not have to be afraid that they will come and jail me or even shoot me or persecute in any way. My father was one with them, and so we had a wonderful life. There are many questions that you might have. How were the Germans so stupid as to elect Hitler? Why did he come to power? Why did your father even become a Nazi? There are many reasons. But you have to remember that Germany at that time had so many small parties. The largest of the one was the communists. And then the Nazism grew. People were afraid of communism, and we should be. And they said, we don't want communism. And so when Hitler came to power as early as 1919, and then he was working already from 1920, but not till 1933, Hitler was elected by most of the population of Germany. There was unemployment, 25% of unemployment in Germany. People were divided. Hitler came, and within a very short time, the Germans produced more in a year or two than they produced in years. Unemployment was almost gone. There was order, no more chaos. And the people liked that. And so Hitler was very popular. He was elected. And no one to this day will tell you, oh, we never really knew what Hitler was about, and why did he persecute the Jews? You know, I was only 5 and 6 under Nazism, and I would ask my parents, what are these trucks doing? So many trucks are running by our house. I've never seen that before. And they were with Jewish people who were going to concentration camps. But I was told these are just blankets, tires, iron, anything that we can find to help the war. And these are trucks full of what we call, what do we do, recycling things? Never did anyone tell me these were Jews. I went with my mother to the store, and suddenly my favorite butcher was gone. He always gave me little pieces of meat. He was gone. He was Jewish. I asked, where is he? We don't know. He just left. I want to say to the American people, open your eyes, because I see so much here in the United States that worries me. Socialism is growing here. After World War, maybe World War I, World War II, there was a small percentage, 12%, maybe 20% of people who said, oh yeah, socialism would be okay. Today is almost 40%. What is happening to us? As a parent, if your child says, oh, socialism is not so bad, tell them, let them go to Cuba. Let them just go to China. They'll come back kissing the grounds of the United States. But that's what Nazism was all about. Their eyes were closed. They said, oh, look, Hitler is giving me. Oh, no more chaos, and now work, and prestige, and now we're going to be so powerful. And everybody was for Hitler. And no one said, I knew what he was doing to the Jews. If they read his book, Mein Kampf, which he wrote in prison, Mein Kampf, my struggle, my power, he identified himself. He told them what he was doing about the Jews. But nobody wanted to read that. Even so, most of the people were forced to read that book when he was in power. I showed to my students at Lipscomb a documentary of his personal secretary. And she said that she saw a Hitler that loved children, loved animals, his dog, favorite dog. And he would say, "Child," to me, the secretary, "you are so tired today. Why don't you go home early?" She said, "I never saw a Hitler like I learned later." She was there when he committed suicide. But it was till 1983 when she saw a statue of the famous white chapter of the doctors and nurses who were opposing Hitler. They all lost their lives. She says, "Not till I saw a statue to Sophia Stolz did I finally believe that I was wrong." I have a book by Mr. Heck. He wrote it, The Nazi Child. It took him until 1989, to come to terms that he was wrong as a Hitler youth and that Hitler was wrong. That is how much we were brainwashed. I was brainwashed when I lived 13 years under communism. Parents, make sure that what your children believe is genuine, because they want to believe something. I think we are created so that we want to believe into something. And if you don't give the children the right thing, they will believe something. I was totally immersed in the communist ideology. But till I get to that, I just have to say, we were working and having a good life, and I had toys. My sister is deceased now, but she used to tell me, we had toys that nobody even had. We had good food and servants and toys and under Nazism. Therefore, I say, under Nazism, for me, it was a great life. Why? Because my father was one of them. Now, I would like to straighten out something, and don't get me wrong. Not everybody who was a Nazi was a monster. Nazism became monstrous later on, but they started out like a party. We are Republicans, we are Democrats, they were Nazis, there were some communists. And so Nazism was first a party, but it grew to something terrible. But then there were brown uniformed Nazis and black uniformed. And the black uniforms were the Gestapo. They were the ones who were guarding Hitler and supposedly committing all these atrocities in all the concentration camps. So for me, my life was happy from 1939 till about 44, November 44. The war broke out in September of 1939 when Hitler invaded Poland. I was born just a few months before then in April of 39. So I'm almost 87 years old. When the war broke out, I still had a good life. It was not till about 1944 when the war was getting very, very intense, very severe. And until then, we never had any American or Russian bombs coming into our city. They stayed in Berlin or Hamburg, where some nights 100,000 people would die. They'd been bombed. But we were still safe. And then about in 43, we had to suffer a lot of bombings. Many times I stayed in the basement 5, 6, 7 hours a night. And or you go to sleep and you have to get out of the bed and go back there. And then the walls shake and the windows break, and the air is stifled. Everything had to be dark, and you just had to sit there for hours thinking, will I die this time? And then you go out and you see your neighbor's house destroyed and some dead people on the street, and you say, well, when the alarm will sound tomorrow or today, will I be next? So these were very scary times, and as most of you know, I suffered severe claustrophobia, and the doctors think it's coming from the time I was so tight in the basement and for hours and in the dark. I hate darkness to this day. But we always survived. In 44, things were getting so bad, the Russians were coming closer and closer. And in November of 44, the Russians were only 60 kilometers, which is very close, from my home. My father said, you have to run. My parents owned 2 houses. My father says, leave everything. Just take what you need and run. Well, you know, my mother wanted to take her jewelry and her fur coats. And she said, oh, well, I'll be back in a day or 2. Well, we dropped everything very slowly. We walked some days 20 miles a day. You said, is it possible? I was only 6. My aunt had a little baby in a stroller. This was the worst winter in history up until then. Very, very, very cold. 20 minus. And we walked. No clothes change. You just go and run. And it's possible because you are scared. You hear the bombs and the cannons and you run. Where did we go? And did we sleep? Did we eat? No. When you went by some German houses, they locked the doors. They were afraid of us. And they should, because as we walked in the same filthy clothes, we could not even relieve ourselves taking the clothes down because they were frozen to our bodies. So imagine what we looked like. And then when you have fleas, and we had lice, head lice and body lice, and we were just diseased. We did not expect anyone to let us in. We just walked. What did we eat? There were a lot of dead animals on the road. Dogs, cats, horses. And we sliced some of that meat and ate it. And children say, oh, that's fine, Miss Spears now can eat, and she can grill the meat. That's not so bad. And I said, yes, how do we get to grill it? Even if we had matches, which some people probably took, they were totally wet and frozen. So there was nothing but just frozen meat. That's all we ever ate. And we walked from my house, which was about 120 kilometers from Berlin, all the way to Prague, Czechoslovakia. It took us weeks to get there. One day, we came to a place close to Czechoslovakia. And the people literally stood there and welcomed us in. I cannot believe it to this day. The way we looked, the way we smelled. And they said, come in. And they were farmers. And they were eating almost rotten potatoes and had little thin down buttermilk. And we thought, this is the most wonderful feast. They changed our clothes, they washed them, dried them, one of those top-belly stoves. I don't know what they put on me, something big. And in the morning, they gave us a little to eat and gave us our clothes back. Do you know how that felt? That was wonderful. I truly believe God used these people because I saw so much hatred. My grandfather could not walk anymore. He was almost trampled to death. My aunt had that baby in a stroller. We pulled her, we pushed her. The wheels were frozen, we could not do much. She had nothing to eat. When somebody happened to have a little bread or something, my aunt almost went to her knees saying, give me a little bread for my baby. And they said, she's going to die anyway, and my baby is still alive. All that hatred I saw, by the way, the baby did die. And I lost my grandparents and much of my family that way. But had I not seen the kindness of this one family, even as a child of 5.5, close to 6 years old, I think I would have a hard time believing in a loving God, because there was just no mercy, none. People would rob you. If you lie there, halfway dead, they came and took your gloves, your scarves, anything. I need it, you're already dead. In the morning, see that little doll? That is number 2 doll. I lost the first one in the snow when we were running away from the Russians. But in the morning, these kind people not only gave us a little breakfast, they gave me a doll like this. This represents a little Black Forest doll. They did not say, little girl, I want you to know this represents love. We loved you. All we did for you, we loved you. We don't need any words. You show love. And I recognized it. That was love given to me. But I lost the first doll very soon. But when we came back from Poland to West Germany, and we were giving a little spending money, the first money I spent on is buying a doll like that, because I wanted to remember those people. We came to Prague, Czechoslovakia, and I went back there in 1998. I recognized the castle and almost the windows where we were. They put us in rooms that big, all the people who were in the same track. We're supposed to have had a track leader and all, but remember, this was almost at the end of the war. Nobody cared, nobody was there to feed you, to lead you, nothing. You were on your own. But as we were coming into Czechoslovakia, more and more people were behind us, so they put us in castles. We were diseased, therefore they said, you were quarantined. They locked our doors. The rooms were full. They put up people in the next room. And what do? You go crazy. There was food 1 time a day. It was come up on ropes through a window. And I've seen it one time when the same bucket with soup was also used from our buckets that we used for human waste. And all they did is wash it out a little bit and put soup in it and brought it up. We were making little piles, dead people in one corner, the other ones, the ones delirious with typhus. Typhus is caused by lice and dirty food, water. My mother has typhus. And we were just sitting there going crazy with 1 meal a day. But we also were issued combs for our lice. And I remember my mother combed down her lice one time and just started counting for herself. 15, 16, I don't know what she said. And somebody heard her and said, oh, you mean you have 18 lice today? And my mother says, yes. And they said, oh, I have 25. And before you knew it, we had a game. And have you ever seen a race of lice? They had a race of lice. One was running this way, one this way, and I heard people say, that's mine. I wanted to say, did you put a little something on the heads, like maybe, what is it, fingernail polish or something, that you know this is your lice? Louse. But it didn't matter. It just mattered we survived. You read POW books, and they will tell you the crazier you acted, the better you survived. So we were there, and once a day, we tied ropes on the dead people and lowered them through the window. and you did not know where your loved ones went. They took them away, piled up on a buggy, and that was once a day. Human waste go down once a day. Terrible conditions. But in 1945, signs kept appearing. German people go home. The war is over. Oh, my mother was so happy. Now we can go back home to our homes and all of our beautiful furniture and everything we left behind. So we walked again. This time we were a little lucky. We could go sometimes in trains because they did not use them for military purposes anymore, so we could use a train. But a train goes only so far, and then the train tracks were all bombed out, so you stop, then you walk, then you find something else. So we still had to walk a lot. But my mother was driven with that purpose. I am going home to my riches. When we came there, who greeted us? Polish people. They started shouting, "Szwabki." Szwaby means cockroach. Why were the Polish people there? Well, I'm not going to show the map anymore. But Poland has a border with the Soviet Union, ex-Soviet Union. Stalin said, I want 200 miles of Poland, my choicest part. Well, what do you do with the people from Poland? Well, we're going to put them to Silesia. That way, we're going to make it Polish, and that way the Germans will be pushed out. And that's what happened. The houses were destroyed. Our 2 houses were totally destroyed. When we walked through the town, we recognized our Persian rugs being at somebody's house, or children with our toys, but we were not allowed to say anything because my father was a Nazi, and they said, he is going to be punished. And he was. We slept on the bridges, we slept in stables, we slept among manure, anywhere, till finally we were able to be in one room at my aunt's house, 15 or 16 of us. The Russians found us. Every night, the Russians would come in. You were not allowed to lock your doors or anything. They would have bright flashlights, and they would shine into our beds and looking, they said, for Nazis. But what they were doing is they were looking for people to rape. So I've seen my aunts being dragged away by the Russians to be raped. You could hear screams. You know, sometimes old people, like I am, 86-year-old, were taken, and sometimes even small children, 6 and 7 years old. When the Russians were in Berlin, and I wish I had time to talk to you about Berlin, it was terrible. Stalin encouraged and rewarded every soldier who raped a German woman. And they were left in the snow to freeze, and many times babies still next to the parents, both to freeze after they've been mistreated, gang raped. Terrible conditions. But we were there, and the Polish people had a little grinder, and they would grind a little flour there. We were not allowed to get any food. If there was anything, it was for the Polish people. So my sister and I would sneak out at night to the manure pile and find some potatoes or rotten peels that they've discarded. And we could bring it into that little room. And we made potato pancakes out of all that. My father, there's another story. My father never was with us till later. But when my father came back, he built a mousetrap. And on that mousetrap, we were catching sparrows. He put it on top of the roof, and we had maybe 1 sparrow, and that was wonderful. 1 sparrow, a big pot of water, and we had soup with rotten potato peels. And that's how we survived for the longest time. The Russians came every night wanting to take the women to rape, and even the children. And one day when one of them was close to me, and my mother thought that they're going to take me and my sister, we dressed my sister, who was 14 at the time, we dressed her like a boy, but they didn't care. And my mother still had a pistol from a previous soldier. And she took that pistol and said no. Well, one Russian soldier took that pistol from my mother, but my mother went to the other Russian and knocked his hand and took the pistol out of his hand. And she said no, and they ran down the steps. And as far as we know, most of them did not come back. Then they had such a thing was called Kommandantura, which they wanted to have a little more order already. If you complained, you could go and they took care of you. And we lived like this for the longest time. One time somebody took us in for a week or two, then another time no one. Then a widow took us in, and with that widow we lived for the longest time. It was wonderful. And I learned how to milk a cow and do a few things. This was a good time. People did not bother us anymore, but they now went after my daddy. So my father was imprisoned for 3 years, tortured, and left almost for dead, mostly at holidays. They always knew where we were, this house or under the bridge. They found us, they put my father close to us and watched us. We weren't able to help him. He was bloody, he was hurt, and they watched till nighttime, and they said, now you can take him. Mostly it happened what we call Easter, Christmas, any of these holidays. I knew that my father will be tortured again and brought to us. So these were terrible times for about 3 years. But after a while, things gotten a little more normal. I was going to the first grade in Poland, learned the language, and graduated from the Polish high school, since we lived there 13 years. Sometimes I remember I had a ladies' day in Charlotte Avenue, and for 1 week I did nothing but spoke on communism. And all I want to say is socialism is not far from communism, and it's terrible. You have no rights for anything. You have no imagination. Nothing is encouraged. You have to do what they tell you. They feed you everything, spoon-fed, and some people like that. Give me, give me, give me. But they did not see the lines. I had more posters, I didn't put them up. We stood in line 5-6 hours to just get maybe one little something, maybe flour or sugar or bread. And my mother would stand in line 3 hours. I would go and relieve her for 3 hours. And then she would stand again to just get anything for us to eat. But then they needed someone to cook in the Polish school. Oh, my father says, I can be a janitor. And my mother says, I can be the cook. So we were able to move in. And it was wonderful. Not for long. In the summer, naturally, they did not pay my father, nor my mother. So my father said, I need to go find a job. I had an uncle who was an engineer building up all the bridges. And my uncle says, yeah, I can give you a job. Come on. My father wasn't there, I don't know, a month or two, and a big iron beam fell on his leg and crushed it. And this was still 45, 46, no doctors, no anesthesia, nothing. So they took my father, loaded him on a car, and he said they cut his leg off with a regular saw. And then, from then on, he was an invalid and lost all his spirit. I mean, he did not care if he lives or dies. But naturally, we could not be there anymore because we could not do the job without my father. Even so, we helped as children. So we were out again on the street. These were just terrible times under communism. But from first grade on, I was being indoctrinated. You had only one speaker, one radio, and it was beaming all over town with propaganda. Stalin says this, and they say this, and you need to do this, and not, long live socialism, and down with communism, with capitalism. And they were telling me how bad America is, and everything propaganda. I heard one time Stalin being interviewed, and a little girl was saying, "Do you remember me?" And he said, "Yes, you're the one that had more oats they were gathering." He said, "You had more than anybody else. How did you do it?" And she said, "Oh, I was gathering with 2 hands." And Stalin was praising her. I heard that and I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be the best communist. I'm going to just work hard and do everything so that I could help my family. And I was pretty red by the time I left my home of Silesia for West Germany. But so much I could tell you about communism. And maybe later if you have questions, I don't know. But it is terrible to live there. No apartments. When I went back in 1998, after 40 years of not being home, the place where we finally found an apartment, which was a nice size, was divided. 3 families were living in it, sharing all these rooms. This was already in 1998, after communism. They could not get up. You go to West Germany, and then you go to what was East Germany, and you see the difference to this day. You can see the houses dilapidated, and every house looks the same. Terrible. You were in Berlin. I didn't want you to go there because there was nothing to see in Berlin. But it's just, I mean, there's nothing in communism. We had 1 pair of shoes a year. It doesn't matter. Sandals or boots, whatever you got, you wore. 1 dress, 1 coat. You were lucky to have a change of clothes. That's communism. I went to school, and a Russian teacher came. And he was drunk every time he came. And he would say, "Здравствуйте," means hello. Boom. And he just slept the whole time. That was our education. You could not hire or fire anybody. No matter how bad you were working as a teacher or in a factory, there was no firing. So you had a job for life. Therefore, you produce nothing. So, communism, a failure. Very quickly, when I think about the Americans, what hard workers they are, and I think about the people under communism, I don't have to think. I can see why we achieved what we achieved in the United States today. But in 1958, we tried and tried. My father tried over and over to get out from Poland. And nobody was allowed to go, naturally not. But then they had an exchange of prisoners, and so many Germans could come out when they let them have so many prisoners. So my father applied again, and they said, well, you know, you are an invalid. My mother had heart trouble. I, at that time, had tuberculosis in my knee. They thought I never do anything but die. So they let me go. My sister had some problems. They said, go. And you might hear stories about how the West Germans were welcoming refugees. Not us. We went on a train, and things happened there. My brother and I just had some money, and we decided we're going to go for a ride. We never been in a car before. So we went for a ride in a car, paid the man money, and we just rode and rode and almost missed the train that would have gotten us to West Germany. When we finally came, my mother threw things at us, whipped us with everything she had in her hand. She was so nervous and scared that we would lose it. But we went to a train. My father finally found the seat, and we came to West Germany. Oh, in West Germany was wonderful. They were singing the national anthem. They were bringing us bananas. Until then, I never saw a banana. I saw one time an orange, but it was rotten. But I still smelled it and enjoyed it. There was just nothing under communism. And I have to tell you this. 2 days ago, my cousin called me. And she says, Tante, which means aunt, she says, you know, I just watched a documentary on Hawaii. And I thought about you because we lived 3 years in Hawaii. She said, I remember that you sent us a coconut to Poland from Hawaii. She said, and we took that coconut, and from class to class to class, the children couldn't believe that they actually saw and handled a coconut. And then we opened it and ate a piece. And I said, you know, I don't remember sending you a coconut. Because at that time, we were sending a lot of stuff, medicines and clothing to them. And my mother-in-law, poor thing, she had shoes for the summer. And I said, you have too many shoes. And then when I saw she had shoes for the winter, 10 more pairs, I said, we're going to have to make packages for Poland. And we did. Poor mama. I mean, we just did all that. But we came to West Germany, and the East Germans took everything we still had. My brother had a nice violin. They confiscated that. Whatever we had, they still took from us. And they called us traitors and opportunists and all that. And we came to West Germany, and we had to be in a big home. And again, they deloused us. They thought that in Poland we had lice. We didn't. They were very brutal. They didn't say, may I please raise your dress so I can give you a shot? Or may we look if you have lice? They were so rough. They treated us like we were just stupid, no good people. And that was the welcome. And we stayed in that place 3 days. We got our names. Oh yeah, I need to tell you, my names were changed in Poland. I wasn't Dietlinde anymore. I wasn't Degenhardt. I became Eleonora Pietrowska, which I never answered to except on my passport. You can see the Polish passport, Pietrowska Eleonora. But I went by Linja, sort of a little bit like Linda, Linja. And so we suddenly are Germans again. Here you go. Dietlinde, you are now Dietlinde Degenhardt again. I spoke Polish 13 years, very little German. Now you're telling me I'm a German? I didn't see any kindness yet. They were mean to me. I don't want to be a German. I said, I'm leaving. I'm going back to Poland as soon as I settle down with you. Let you find a place, and then I'm gone. I was very red. We came to another place. We stayed there 9 days. And finally, they asked us, where do you want to go? My father says, we don't care, just get us out. Get us away from here. Again, I think because of the providence of God, we didn't go where we were supposed to go, to the north of Germany. We came to Frankfurt, Germany, where all the military was. And because of that, we could find jobs. I worked for Americans for a while, and then naturally Raymond was stationed there. But West Germany was to me a paradise. Cars and food and no lines. I could not believe that everything I was told, they were lies. And then I had to go to a rehabilitation school where they made a Westerner out of me for 6 months. And we learned day and night, had to pay money if I spoke some word in Polish. And I learned German. I already spoke German. My father always spoke to me, but I didn't like it. But I knew German enough, like a 6-year-old. But I learned very quickly. In 6 months, I was out of there. Started working for the Americans. And then there was a friendship evening, American and German friendship evening. And my brother said, I'd like to go. I said, I'm not going. My sister says, I'm not going. I said, oh, you need to go. She was at that time 28 years old. I said, you need to go. You need to meet someone. Because the West Germans never wanted to do anything. I wasn't a member of the church then. I was dancing all the time. Not one German from the town, from the village where they put us, even asked me to come. But I did not say that when we left that place where we were indoctrinated and made Germans again, they put us on open tractors or trailers or whatever, cold in the winter. I didn't even own a coat, on top of the truck for miles, and they dropped families down. You are assigned to go here, you are assigned here. And in one of my books I was writing about it, the day we stayed at the Iron Gate, we came to this huge gate, frozen to death, that big house. We thought, oh, now we are here, they're going to love us. But no, nobody came for the longest time. And finally they showed us 2 rooms. There were 2 sisters. One sister let us go upstairs. She had 2 beds for us. The second sister gave us nothing but a kitchen, which we know was a place for horses, because they still had the trough where the horses drink. We used that to wash our dishes in. That's what they gave us. 1 chair. When my father sat in it, he fell to the floor. That was our welcome. Freezing cold, nothing to eat, not a fork, not a knife. And I kept telling my family, I told you so. See, everything I learned under communism is true. Germans are bad people, and the West is bad. Slowly, slowly, somebody had mercy on us, brought a potato and some coal, and we finally made ourselves as pleasant as we could, so that they all would love us. And I was in that school, and when I came out from that school, I had to redo my high school again. And finally, after I did that, I came home and worked for the Americans, and that was when we had the evening of friendship together. And my sweet husband, Dietlinde Spears, who was in the military 23.5 years. We've been married 64 years. This is the time he met my sister. And he came, that's okay. I just spilled my water. Somebody left my book up here. I think Marvin left my book up here. But
don't let it get on the remote.
yeah. But when he met my sister, I said, ooh, I'll disappear. I don't want to stay around because I draw attention to myself, and my sister is the one that needs a boyfriend. I don't. So I disappeared. And she came back. She said, he wants a phone. I said, tell them we're so poor, we don't have a phone. We don't have anything. I mean, they didn't realize how poor we were. When Raymond came visiting, he drank all our coffee, all the time. And we did not even drink real bean coffee. After he left, we had to have just, coffee like hickory things or something. Not real coffee because we couldn't afford it, but he drank it. But he dated my sister about 3 months, and then I married him. But I did not want to go to the United States. Even so, I heard propaganda from Radio Free Europe and all this about America, but I didn't believe it, how good it is. All they showed me in Poland is how you persecuted the black people, and they are no good except for athletes, and they have nothing. Well, when I came, I saw they had cars, they had televisions, many of them had a home. I said, I was just fed lies all the time. So it did not take that much time anymore for me to finally be persuaded that the West was good. And so I lived there with Raymond. We met in September, got engaged in February. Oh, that's another story. We're not supposed to get engaged, but he said, oh, yeah, let's just look at the rings. Well, we looked at the rings. He said, okay, why don't you keep it? We're engaged, you know. So, and then after 6 more months, we came to America. Can you imagine? I mean, I've never flown. I couldn't speak hardly any English. Raymond had to go on his own, and I had to follow him to New York. I said, what am I doing here? Where will I find Raymond in New York? And I could not even ask for anything. I wanted some water or something. I had no dollars. I was so dumb. I just came here with my German money. And there was no exchange. I couldn't buy anything. But God provided again a young girl, Sandy, and she said, I will stay with you till you find your husband. Well, we got separated, so she never could do it. But finally, in New York, if you've ever been at the big airport, then they walk around like this. So Raymond must have been walking, I don't know how many times. And I finally looked up and I saw him. And we finally met. And so we went on the bus. We stayed in New York for a while in the church building. Then we went on the bus, and I get sick. And on the bus, I didn't tell anybody. So when I came home so sick, everybody thought I was pregnant. His grandmother says, Raymond, whatever you do, do not make her pregnant. She doesn't need to be pregnant. We have nothing. And we didn't. We lived with his parents in a tiny bedroom. They had a tiny bedroom. We had a tiny bedroom. The smallest house. I have more place now in my duplex than I had in that house. But they were loving and kind. They were the best parents-in-law. And they took me, and I learned to cook, and I learned to use wash machines, but they left me all day long by myself. They went to work. Raymond worked 2 jobs so that we can make ends meet. And here I sit, blinds closed because of the air conditioning. I never had air conditioning. I was used to having windows open. And here, again, everything closed. Phone ringing, I could not answer. I did turn on the TV, didn't understand anything. I wanted something from the refrigerator, and those old refrigerators, they were huge, but they had this noise. When you opened it, it went shh, and then you closed it, it went shh. And I thought, oh, I did something wrong. And so I never went back. I was so afraid. These were terrible times. And then I had some kind people. Many of you know Ray Walker from the Jordan Airs. He was so kind to Raymond and me. The Ezels, who used to own the Purity Dairies, they did wonders with me. And it was slowly, I just adjusted to America. And this was the most wonderful thing that ever happened to me when I came to America. I mean, even so, Germany was free and Germany was already rich. You cannot imagine what it was to me to be in the United States. Neighbors at that time were free. People knew each other. They sat on porches. They spoke with each other. Nobody heard about homosexuality, marriages, homosexual marriages, abortion. I never heard any of it. This was like a paradise coming. And then I went home. I worked for an airline. They let me fly home. When I came back, Raymond informed me that he joined the Air Force again. And so we were back in the Air Force. And we were traveling all over the country and in Europe. And when we came back in 1980, I did not recognize the United States. We are so greedy. We want everything for nothing. Just give me, give me, give me. And we will elect leaders who will always just give us things. We don't ask, what does he stand for? What does she believe in? Is she right for America? No, what she can give to me. Just reminds me of communism. Just give me, give me. But God used Raymond to bring me to Christ. I was practically an unbeliever. Oh, I worshipped in a Catholic church and confessed my sins, but I never was told anything about a Jesus who is a loving Savior. All I learned is a God that's going to punish me if I do wrong. When I went to First Communion, you may not eat. And I was always so hungry. So I had a piece of bread in my pocket. And as soon as I took the communion, then I took the bread. Well, you may not do that in a Catholic church building. You may not eat. So I had another sin the minute I got out and confessed my sins. And then I did not know how to confess. So they gave me a book. They said, just read the book and confess. Well, I was so afraid that I go to hell taking communion if I don't confess everything. So I just read it all off, confessed every sin. And I was at that time maybe 12, and some of them were sexual sins. Like, have you ever done anything in secret of which you would have been afraid to tell your parents? Well, sure. So I confessed. Did you ever do it with the opposite sex? Well, sure. Did you ever touch the opposite sex? Man, I whipped them. I was a gang leader. I whipped boys and girls and touched them naturally. And how often do you do that? I said, 3-4 times a week. And I got the worst punishment. When I went to my friends, I said, what did the priest tell you to do? Oh, say 2 Holy Marys. Ooh, I had 10 Holy Marys, candles to burn, all kinds of punishment because they thought, here goes the youngest in town. Terrible. The church building was close to my school. So every morning I went, knelt down in front of an idol. You know, we never thought about it. I don't think the Catholics think that this is an idol. But it's a man-made figure. And I kneeled down and I said, I lost 10 cents yesterday. When I come back from church, from school, I need to have my 10 cents back. So I came back and nothing was there. I said, I'm not going to pray to you anymore. So next day I went to another statue and prayed. All those saints. No questions asked. People are just doing it. Why do I have to confess to a man? And who is he to pronounce me guiltless? No, you don't ask that. So all I learned is there's a God, and if you don't do what he says, you're going to be punished and go to hell. And then Raymond introduced me to a God that was loving and forgiving, and to a Jesus I never knew about except that he was born in the manger, and I used to go and kiss his feet, the statues. Oh, everybody was nobody thought about germs. The whole people went to kiss the little statue there of Jesus' feet. That's all I knew about Jesus. And then when I took communion for the first time, I thought, no, I cannot do that. I will go straight to hell now because I didn't confess my sins. That's how scared I was. First time I didn't pray to Holy Mary. I had a statue here, and I just said, Holy Mary, Mother of God. Turn around. Then the next day I put in a drawer. I didn't die. Nothing happened to me. So I did not pray anymore. But then all the other saints, I was always so afraid. There was nothing but a religion of fear. no love. And then Raymond says, a loving Savior, a Jesus, and I understood who he was and that he died for me and that I can be forgiven. I don't have to live in fear anymore. That was the most wonderful freedom that I got. At night I could sleep without having guilt and being scared that I will be dead tomorrow morning or that night. I knew I'm saved as long as I repent. So I was immersed for the remission of sins about 6 months before we married. And you know, when other GIs would go to the bars, Raymond came and taught me the truth and took me to the assemblies. And I want to get sometimes angry at him. But when I think about it, what he done for me and how God used him, I cannot. I mean, where would I be? Where would I be? And all my children and grandchildren are believers, and probably all because he influenced us. I just don't have enough words to just thank you again, and mostly Marvin, and Ryan is doing the video, and everybody helped, and I just cannot tell you enough how grateful I am to be here and to be free and be a Christian. And they said that I'm supposed to open it for questions, so if anybody has questions, please feel free. Yes.
Since I've heard you speak a couple times before, you need to tell them about Raymond taking you to have a hamburger.
Hamburger?
When In-N-Out opening, you should say something about the hamburger. Do you remember saying that to us in the Ladies' Day?
No.
Raymond took you to get a hamburger. Is there a story with that?
She made it up.
Well, when we came to West Germany, we came with one suitcase. We had to buy every fork, every knife, every plate. We were still so poor. Raymond never realized that. And so when he took us for a hamburger, we were just flabbergasted. And you mean I can eat the whole hamburger? I did not believe. I never had enough to eat. All the time I lived in Poland, I was hungry. And in West Germany, I didn't have much to eat because we had to buy shoes and clothes and curtains. So we didn't buy much food, one little portion, and that was it. And I came to America, and now I don't eat because I'm hungry, just because I have appetite, you know. We say, today I feel like pizza, and today I feel like this, and that's what we eat. So, okay. Is that it? Okay. Somebody else had their hands up. No? Marvin.
I have a question.
I just wanted to, go ahead.
What do you think of young men today minimizing the Holocaust, having Nazi edits, almost like glorifying Nazism?
I have a quote here. David Irving, British contemporary historian, waters down the Holocaust. And many in Britain do, and many in Europe just don't believe that the Holocaust was it was. Like I said, my family did not believe that these were Jews, that they were taken to concentration camps. Nobody wanted to believe that. And like I said, the secretary and other people, it took them so many years before they even knew that it really happened. When I taught in Lipscomb, two things worried me. The young man would say, oh, socialism is not so bad. And then Hitler was not all that bad either. At least there was order in Germany. That's the belief, because we don't inform them. We don't teach our young people. It scares me what I see. Yes?
When we were in Germany, we went to a concentration camp. And
Dachau?
the pictures that you can see only get through that
I know.
half of the way because I'm going, I can't do this. It was awful.
Yeah,
Just
I cannot
pictures-
go.
Just pictures were awful.
I did not go to Dachau. My family went, and I just stood outside. I don't think I could take it. But there's this book by Corrie ten Boom, and she talks about the Holocaust. And she told her sister, she said, you need to pray and thank God for all the people who came. They already slept two to a little bed, and there were more people. And she said, why? And she said, well, more people can now hear the gospel. She had smuggled a Bible in, and had the Nazis found the Bible, they would have all been shot, but they had all fleas. And so the Nazis stayed away from them, and they didn't rape them, they did not search them. And so in my book, I say, thank you, God, for fleas. And that's what she said. And I thank God for lies, because the lies kept us sane where we were in Prague, Czechoslovakia. So you can be grateful for anything in your life if you just make it a blessing. That's it.
Okay, I wanted to quickly. Some of you have asked if this was being recorded today, and the answer is yes. We're going to have a video and audio only file, but give us a week or so to edit it and get it together to where we can tell everybody where they can get it. So there's the answer to that. And I'm gonna
Hey,
ask-
Marv, is this your book?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
You want to tell them about that?
Sure. I bought one of Dietlinde's books. She's written many, but this one is called My Four-Dimensional Life Under Nazism, Communism, Republican Democracy. And this is available at Amazon.com if anybody wants to get it. So I think Inga's read it 3 times, he said?
No, I read it 3 days.
She read it in 3 days. Okay. So I'm going to ask Clint to lead us in a closed prayer.
Let's pray. Our God, Father in heaven, we're so thankful for this Lord's Day. We're thankful for this riveting tale that Dietlinde just shared with us. And Father, I pray that you continue to bless her, Raymond, and their entire family. Father, I pray that you be with us as we leave here this afternoon. Father, we pray that we make it to our home safely. And Father, that you reassemble us this evening at 5 o'clock. We're so grateful for the Spears family and all that they do and mean to us here at Southern Hills. In Jesus' name, amen.
And I don't remember if I introduced my daughter and my son-in-law and my grandson. Okay.
You did.
Okay.
Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.